We're going to get started this morning, and what the title is, like a fortress or a facade. And how many of you guys know what a facade is? You know, if you've been in construction, you know what a facade is. Best way I can describe a facade is if you've ever been, I'm from the South, and we love fireworks. And it could be the middle of October, and you drive past a fireworks shop, you're like, we need to stop and get some fireworks. And you know, you drive down I-40 in Arkansas, you see about 9,000 fireworks stands. And everyone says it's the biggest fireworks stand in the country. And they've got this big building, and you're driving, and I'll be driving down the road. Man, that's the biggest fireworks stand. We got to stop and get some fireworks. And my wife's like, what do we need fireworks for? It's October. It's like, well, you always do fireworks. So we pull in, big, beautiful building. You go in. It looks like you're expecting to walk into a Walmart, and it's like a 7-Eleven. And you think, well, man, this building, they must have sell a lot of product. They got a huge warehouse out back. You get done. You buy your bottle rockets, and you get in the car. You go about another mile, or you get in the car. You get back on the freeway. You look in your rearview mirror, and it's this big, beautiful exterior, and it's this little bitty building out back. And you get driving. You drive about another mile down the road. And of course, now they're the biggest fireworks stand in the country. Like, well, that person must have had it first, and then this guy must have built. And so that's just the old sign. We got to pull in there and get some fireworks. And it's the same thing. And and so a facade is an outward appearance that is maintained to conceal a less pleasant or credible reality. And so, being in construction, we see that a lot. And we go to a lot of houses that are new. Man, they're beautiful, especially some of the new track stuff. You pull up, and that house is just beautiful on the outside. And the homeowners call, and they say, hey, we got a bunch of work needs to be done. We just moved in. And you're thinking, well, I know how much this house costs. Like, what kind of work could you possibly need done? And you go in, and they got, bad drywall or tile showers all messed up or all this. We have a house currently, they closed 2 weeks ago, over $1 million. We're doing like a full bathroom renovations and all the stuff because it's just so bad on the inside. And so they've built this beautiful facade to draw you in, and then a lot of times as men and as consumers, you're so bought by the facade that you really don't care about as much as because you have to have this beautiful facade. So when your buddies drive by, oh man, that house is beautiful. And so as that relates to my life, and Ryan did this last week, and I think it's a great thing with the timeline thing, because I know a lot of you don't know me. And if I own a couple companies here, and if you saw me out and about, I'm blessed with a beautiful wife, 2 great kids, and you would think everything in my life has just been this great, grew up really great childhood, got into business, had all these successes and all this, and when we build that facade, it kind of like causes other men to like, well, I wish I had what they had. But a lot of times that's not what it is. So I'm going to do my timeline kind of like what Ryan did last week. So I was born here, and I'm going to say 84. None of y'all judge me here. I know y'all thought it was like 97. But so I was born. Parents got divorced at 2 years old. My mom got married again. And when I was 7 years old, I was sexually abused. My mom married another guy, physically abused there. Grew up extremely poor. In high school, car got repossessed, lost our house. Got into supposed to play college sports here. It's my way out, big ticket. Got hurt my senior year, lost my scholarship. Here was determined not to go back to the trailer park, so I went to work, partied, and then by the grace of God, I met my wife when I was almost 20 years old. We got married, had our first son when I was 24. Life was good Christian woman, came from a great background. I have no idea what she saw in me, but we got married, had our second son. I was 26. Then I had this desire to build this life that I had always wanted, and I had been blessed with. Lord had carried me through a really hard time in my life. He was the one thing that was there when nothing else was there. And I really ran from him because I was an athlete. Home life was terrible. I turned to all the things that the world offers you with partying and girls and all that stuff, living the athlete life, and kind of ran from it. And then I met my wife, got married, had 2 kids. She was a good Christian woman. First date we went to church with her dad, who interrogated me. He's like, "You want to go to lunch?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll go to lunch." Like, "Okay, we're going to go to the Olive Garden." I was like, "Oh man, that's fancy." So we go to the Olive Garden, and I'm like, I couldn't even eat, man. He set me down. He ran a large company there, and he was kind of like, "What is she doing bringing this cat home?" I know I always tell her, "I know you're after the Jeep." I drove a Jeep Grand Cherokee, had about 270,000 miles on it. The boys playing. It had lift kit, about 4 big bald Mickey Thompson tires, good sound system, but yeah, he interrogated me the whole time. And so that was fun, but then we had really hit this stride of life where I had got to see what I never had seen. My mom was married 7 times. My dad's been married 7 times, and I had gotten this marriage that first of all I never even thought existed. Lord had blessed me with 2 kids. My dad was never active in my life. He was there when there was a game or an awards banquet or something, so he could be like, "That's my boy," and then by the time it was over, he's gone. And so I had gotten the chance to have 2 kids, and we had this guy was active and present, but I'd always wanted to have this, get out of how I grew up, and have this great life. And so I made the decision about probably 28 to really start building this things of the world. And I set off, and the Lord blessed me. I started, we owned, our family had a huge event center there. We built all that out. I started building houses, started flipping houses, started selling real estate, had my real estate company, and we were really, trucking along, and it was never enough. When it's one of those things where, like, the Lord, I said here, the Lord gave me this. I want to start flipping houses. Okay, He gave me this, and it was successful. And then I was okay. I want to start building houses. He gave me this, and it was successful. And then I had real estate, and it was successful. And I was able to do all this stuff while being able to take care of these people and be an active part of these people here, my wife, kids. But it was never enough for me. I wanted to be this big shot, and I wanted to be more than just a local guy. And so the Lord gave me an opportunity in 2020 to leave this local stuff here that was good. We had ups and downs like everybody does in business, but we made it through the recession and all that stuff, and everything was great. And He gave me this opportunity to go be a VP for a national builder in Scottsdale. And so I was like, all right, let's go. My wife's parents are retired there. They had some health concerns there. And I was like, okay, let's go. I'm going to go. Went out there, took the job, hired in as a VP of sales for the largest infill builder in the country. And I don't know if you know what infill is. Infill is where you buy a house in we worked in the really rich areas of the country. So like in Scottsdale, we were at the base of Camelback Mountain. We'd buy a house that was $1 million, tear it down, build a $10 million house on it. And got in. I was there about a month and a half, and they said, hey, would you be interested in taking over the build cycle too? So I was over the sales, the disposition, and the build cycle of the company. The company was about a $2 billion a year company. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Okay, so I was already working, 9+ hours here, Now I took over this. Now this was 10 to 11 hours here. And they said, hey, our acquisition, we've been buying a bunch of stuff we shouldn't have bought. Would you be interested in taking over acquisition? And I'm thinking, yeah, we just added to that. We're gonna make you the EVP of asset management. I said, okay. Well, that turned into 12 hours plus travel because we had locations all over. And they announced, I was there about a month. They said, hey, our COO is retiring. We want to announce you as the COO. And I was like, all right. And everything was going good. I'm thinking, man, we've hit this progression here. And on the outside, on this facade, I was killing it. Life was great. I made, back here, I made $400,000 here. And then when I was going to take over as the CEO, that's over $1 million a year job. And on the outside, I was like, let's go. Yeah, I'm all going. But on the inside, when you get behind that facade, this marriage here that was my marriage was my most important thing. That was struggling. I had a son that had gotten a bad baseball injury and went on a 16-month journey of throwing up at least 30 times a day, every day, because he couldn't figure out what's wrong with it. He had to be taken out of school. He was isolated, had no friends, and I was getting in my truck at 4 o'clock in the morning, leaving, wasn't coming back till 10 something at night, if I was coming back that night. I may be in a different part of the country. And they were at home, and the one thing that God gave me in this period right here that I valued the most was falling apart. And my son, he didn't have any friends, and it was his birthday coming up, and some of y'all know this story. And so he said, Dad, I don't have anybody to invite to my birthday party. It's his 13th birthday. I said, well, you know what? Let's send me and your brother an invitation. We're gonna go. We're gonna accept it. We're gonna go ride go-karts. We're gonna throw a big party, ride go-karts, throw axes. What else could a 13-year-old want to do? And so we did, and he accepted it. And we had dinner on Friday night, and this is the dinner with the family. It's 5 o'clock. I showed up about 6:45, just enough to catch dessert, because I was working. Next morning, Saturday morning, we had a 12 o'clock reservation. 10 o'clock, I got a phone call. We had about it's about a $30-something million project that Trump was following through. So, of course, I'm the guy. I've signed up for this. I've built this. I've taken the emphasis off of here, and I've put it here. This is now what's most important. And at 10 o'clock, I got a phone call. My son went in to his birthday party at noon. I sat in the truck till 2 o'clock on the phone. When he came out, tears in his eyes, and God had been talking to me, through this period, right? And I felt like he was calling me out of there, but the world was offering me so much more. And I had this facade, that I was trying to keep up. I finally was made it. I finally had what I always wanted growing up. I always wanted to have that executive role in all this. So, birthday party happens at 2. Go home. He won't talk to me. I was his best friend. He wouldn't talk to me that night. My wife is upset. Sunday morning rolls around. We'd started watching a church in Tennessee called Long Hollow online. We've been in it maybe a couple weeks. Robbie shares the rate your spouse, which was a great message at that time. Just what I wanted to hear. And so, so my wife's like, hey, let's rate each other. And I'm like, this is going to be good, man. I got this. My mind, I'm killing it. I mean, I'm bringing in tons of money. And the thing is, no matter how much more money I made, it didn't change her life. We were blessed back here to live comfortably. And even though the zeros got bigger, it wasn't changing any life. So I said, okay, let's rate. Yeah, I'm thinking, man, it's okay. Rate what you think you're going to be. And I thought, you know what? 1 out of 10. I thought, I don't want to be conceited here. So I don't want to set. How about an 8? I'll give myself an 8. And I'm like, she's probably gonna say a 9, and it's gonna be, we're gonna have a good lunch, and it's gonna be a good day. And so I still carry it in my wallet. She came back with a 3. And I got mad. I got plumb mad right here. I've carried it ever since then. And I got stormed out of the room. I was like, what do you mean a 3? Like, I am working my tail off. Look at all the money we're bringing in. Look at all this. And she says, yeah, but remember this time right here? Remember this time? And you drove the kids to school, and we went on vacations, and you were home at night, and you coached baseball, and you did all these things. You were a 10 here, buddy. Mm-hmm. Now, this area, you got all this money, and you're a 3, and you're never here. And if you don't change it, we're not running this thing down to a 1. I'm not going to stay here to take this thing to a 1. And so we did that. After I got done, came back in the room from being mad, I said, you know what? I said, I think I got to change something. And she was like, okay. So we had made a trip out here in between then to go to Tennessee, because we've always wanted to, like, growing up in Northwest Arkansas, we'd come to Nashville all the time, and so we'd come out, we'd seen Franklin and all this, and we thought, oh, one day it'd be nice to live here. So I went back into work that next day, finally turned my phone off on Sunday at 6 p.m., even though that I was still answering phone calls when I should have been talking to my wife. I went in next morning. We ended up losing the $30 million project. So I gave up all this time here, and we ended up losing it. So, went in Monday morning, 8 o'clock. CEO was down right next to me. He called me, and the owner of the company. He said, what happened? I said, what do you mean? He said, man, I've been trying to get a hold of you since 6 o'clock last night. You hadn't answered your phone. And I'm thinking, in my mind, I know what this place here cost me. So I went back to my office, and I called my wife, and I said, hey, I'm done. We're leaving. I'm resigning today. We're moving to Hendersonville. We're going to be part of this church. And I called her because I'm thinking, I need somebody to tell me, dude, you're crazy. And she's like, let's go. And if you know my wife, she's not the let's go kind of person. She's a planner. And so I did. I walked back down the office, and I told them, I said, hey, guys, I'm out of here. And they're like, no, don't leave. Tell us the number. Just tell us. We don't go anywhere else. You've already announced you're a guy. Just tell us the number. I said, man, there is no number. And they said, well, where are you going? And I said, Hendersonville, Tennessee. And they said, why? I said, because I'm going to join a church there. And they were a pretty liberal company. And you would have thought I told them I was going to Waco to join the Colts, man. They looked at me like, what happened? What have you been watching? And so we left, came here. I resigned, put the house on the market the next morning, sold it that day, 18 showings. Praise the Lord, Scottsdale market's good. flew out to Hendersonville the next morning, bought a house, flew home, packed the house up. We were in Hendersonville in 28 days. And got out here, had no idea what I was going to do, you know. Still had this facade. I'm trying. You know, I'm going. I want to get in the, you know, I said, I got to get a job making close to what I made. I got to have all these things, trying to keep this facade up. The Lord started speaking to me, and he said, hey, I've got a plan for you. You know, are you willing to listen? You've moved here, but you're still kind of trying to hold on. You know, you want to go get an executive job here and all this stuff, and you want to, and so I had a bunch of opportunities came my way, and the Lord shut the door, and he said, you know what? He said, I had a really good friend of mine. I don't know if some of y'all probably know him, Mike Price. He goes to church here. He's my realtor. He and I became great friends, and he called me and said, hey, you gotta start. You got to get out of the house, man. You got to start riding me. It's killing you to get home and start riding. And he said, you know, why don't you go into work for yourself? And I said, I've already done that. There's no way Jen's going to go for that again. And I said, man, I can go back to building custom homes. I built, you know, I was fortunate back home. We built, you know, I think our largest house was 32,000 square feet. We built monsters. And he's like, no, I don't think that's quite what the Lord wants for you. And he's like, you ever thought about being a handyman? You know, and I'm thinking, the facade's there. I'm thinking, handyman. Like, I was a custom built. I mean, I built houses that were in magazines back in Northwest Arkansas. And then I just left a job about to be the CEO of a national company. And so he said, man, you got to think about it. And I thought about it, and the Lord said, you know what? And Brian's not here this morning, but he said, you know, I think that's what it is. So I left. My son's homeschooled. We got in my F-150 with the tools I had in my garage, and I started Punch List Heroes at that time. And it was me and my son. The first job we got was pouring concrete on a patio in the middle of July. And then we had to power wash the driveway and stay in it. And I grew up in the heat and doing hard work. But I got pretty used to the office life. And we're pouring in the middle of July, sun's beating down, and I thought, you know what, Lord, you know, we'll see. And I tell you what, it was the funnest experience of my life to be there with my son, just grind. I said, Lord, I don't know. I said, I don't know what your plan is here. I don't know if you want this thing to be a big company or if you want it to be me. If you provide for my family, I don't care what it is. And didn't really know what he was doing. About 3 weeks in, I'm sorry, I'm totally off the script here. I built this beautiful thing, and the Lord kind of put it on my heart last night for this. And about 3 weeks in, we're doing a driveway, maybe a month in. And Brian Pinheiro, if you know Brian, a lot of you guys know Brian. He had lost his daughter a couple of years ago, about a little over a year ago. He'd just lost his daughter. I knew Brian when I moved into my neighborhood. There was like a get together, and I met him briefly there. I kind of knew him, and they just lost their daughter, and he came out the door, and just broken, just totally broken. And I said, man, I know I almost lost my son, but I have no idea what you're going through, but you need to get in a group. And so I had been coming to Fight Club. I brought him with me, picked him up, brought him with me. And what the Lord did in their life, and he got saved, his wife got saved, his parents got saved, his in-law or his nieces moved here, his sisters saved, all this, and then like I went home, I told my wife, I said, like, it all makes sense. You know, everything, I gave up all this, all this to get to this deal. And if nothing ever comes out of this company, like, that's why we moved, and it's worth it. And the Lord had other plans, and by the grace of God, He's blessed us with more business and more guys and more trucks and more, and then I started another business, and he's been faithful, but he's brought guys into my life that work for me. We now have, I think, 10 employees in vans, And he's brought people into my life that are going through struggles. And I've had the opportunity not just to give them a, it's important to me to build a company that is, guys are home with their families every night. They don't work the weekends. They're active parts of it. And a lot of you guys are in construction. That's not a normal. And especially when you're in business we're in. But he's brought all these guys into my life that I've gotten to kind of lean into, and that they want to hear, and they would have never, when I was at the prime of my life right here, I thought everybody in the world wanted to listen to me. Everybody would want to get to know me. Everybody would want, I could speak into somebody's heart, and impart this wisdom. But I had built this facade. I had this life that the Lord had gave me that was good. And I had built this big facade here. And everybody, I put this wall up, and you look on the outside, and you're unapproachable. And like, you think you're doing this great thing, but you've just built this wall where people don't feel like they can talk to you. They don't feel like, and it discourages them because they're not content with, they think, oh man, you've got everything going on. And behind the scenes, I had all this trauma behind the scenes that I was dealing with every day. But I was only wanting to show them this little piece right here. And I think as men, we do this a lot. I think this is something that, we want to, I know there's a lot of guys in here that's going through a lot of hard stuff. And we don't want to, I'm not saying you want to be walking around with your, hat in your hand and oh man, you won't believe what I'm going through. But, I believe in building a fortress. A fortress is a person or thing not susceptible to outside influence. And the way you build the fortress is with God. I mean, Psalm 62:6. Truly, He is my rock, my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. That's a big verse for me, because when we drop the facade, we're able to mentor and talk to guys and encourage guys and have guys encourage us. It's not always about what you can do and how you can impart some great spiritual wisdom. And sometimes, a lot of times, we need it ourselves. And you can't, and I need it. And, Ryan and I are good friends, and he'll call me on it sometimes, and it's, it's good. I mean, it's, when we've got this wall up, you can't talk about a crack in your foundation. I know y'all knew I was going to throw in a construction thing. You can't talk about your crack in your foundation here, because you've built this beautiful facade. And and Ovi knows, a facade is only as good as the old building, because a facade is this building that's only attached by these little pieces here. And so if you've got an old building that's falling apart and you build this big thing on, you're only as good as these little pieces right here. But you can't get help for this because you don't want people to see past this, and you're not willing to take the facade down to get in, to help them get into, just to help. And I think that's a big thing that we struggle with, and I think doing this, I know I drew all over this board, but this is what, this, when you are given the opportunity to talk to a guy that's struggling, this is why a lot of people don't want to come to church, is because they drive in the parking lot and we see this. Everybody's got the perfect family and the perfect house and the perfect cars and living the perfect life and going to go eat at the country club for dinner, But the way we mentor to people is this. This is the story God gives you. And this is what the world builds. But we have to be vulnerable to take that facade down and talk about this and share our struggles and really find other guys that are going through the same thing that maybe you've been through. You know, maybe they're struggling with something you've already overcame, but until we can drop that, like, I don't want them to know, you know, I'm dealing with this, or I own company. What if they find out that I had this, maybe people not gonna like me, or I got this great job, and, you know, I don't want people to know what I've truly been through or what I'm truly going through, because I don't want them to think different about me, you know. But I think that when we break that down and we're willing to take this leap here, you know, I think that's when God works. All the stuff I had from here to there was what I had gotten, and I had built this great reputation. I had all these friends. I left the company. I've had one person reach out to me since I left the company. You know, all these people that I had built, I had poured my life into. Instead of pouring my life into these people right here, all these people that I had given up everything to help them build the company, grow, expand into new markets, you know, help guys expand their career. Important, nobody calls. And the one guy that did call was calling, honestly, to hope I had failed, so he could be like, you know, I told you, you should have stayed. Should have stayed. So guys like in here, these are the guys. I talk to so many guys here. These are the guys that you talk to when stuff's wrong. You know, you're not, because, you know, we've got this place that's been built that guys can be guys. You can talk about stuff that's you're struggling with. You know, and guys can lean on each other. And I think it's very important for us to really focus on how can we be a fortress where we're not going to be shaken by the world. We're going to put the first things first. We're going to worry about this building right here and not this piece right here. This is what's important. How are we going to focus on this and not be concerned about what the worldview is? And I think that's just something that God's laid on my heart. You know, I think that, you know, it's just something that's very important to me, and I go through every day. And this is a struggle because, like I said, you know, even today, our company's growing and doing and more, and it's very easy to try to build this wall up here because you want to present a certain way. But it's just every day it's a choice to say, hey, I'm going to focus on this today. I'm going to make sure this building, it may not be the most beautiful building out there. It may not be the most put together thing out there, but I'm going to make sure that I do my maintenance, my spring maintenance, and that this building is as good as it can be. And I'm not going to worry about spending my time building this beautiful structure on the outside. So I hope that speaks to somebody today. Like I said, I had a beautiful laid out, a whole other thing that I had done, and then the Lord just kind of put this on my heart last night. So hopefully somebody needed to hear that today. So, all right.